Hello and welcome to an Exeter Speak-Ups Toastmasters Club meeting. My name is Olivette Aviso. I am the club president this year. Visitors are always welcome to come to a meeting, and we ask that perhaps you think about joining us. Toastmasters is a self-paced educational program that teaches improved communication and leadership skills. We do this within a club setting, and Toastmasters International is an organization that has been in existence for over 90 years, so they must be doing something right. I like to start the meeting with a reading of the Toastmasters mission statement. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Dr. Ralph Smedley, the founder of Toastmasters International, believed that if people were given continuous, consistent support, they would be better able to develop their communication and leadership skills. In the past, the Toastmasters program has utilized printed materials, but as of May 2018, a new modality called Pathways will be introduced in the Northeast area. It utilizes a more computer-based learning system. This is an exciting move forward for Toastmasters. Pathways is already in use in many districts throughout the world and also in the western part of the United States. Both the manual and the digital modalities will run concurrently for 2 years. New members, however, will be encouraged to start in the Pathways program. Even if you are not a member, you can go onto the website www.toastmasters.org/pathways and look at the information there about how the Pathways program works, and you'll also get an idea of what Toastmasters is all about. Tonight's meeting is a shortened version of one of our regular meetings. You'll also notice we don't have as many members here as we would have at a regular meeting. Tonight's MC is going to be Jonathan Bohm, and you will meet him in a few minutes. All members have the opportunity to participate actively in every meeting. We like to start the meeting on a light note, so we will have a joke master. To enlarge our vocabulary, we have a word master who introduces a word and its definition as well as how to use it in a sentence. Every time an attendee uses the word during the meeting, we clap to acknowledge that someone has used that special word for the evening. One of our unique roles is that of a review master. A review master presents a book or a movie or a restaurant or some activity that the members might possibly be interested in sharing. We also have a quote master who provides us with an inspirational quotation. We have a feature called Table Topics that not only engages many of the members, but also allows guests to participate in the meeting. This feature provides opportunities to learn to speak on our feet. Why is that useful? Every time you pick up the telephone and you don't know who's calling, you are doing a Table Topics. Or perhaps if you go out to meet a client, you don't know what the conversation is going to be like, and that is akin to a table topic. To enlighten us, we have an educational moment that briefly describes some aspect of the Toastmasters program. We have a brief intermission, and then we have our prepared speakers and each speaker has an assigned evaluator who will provide both a written and a verbal evaluation during the meeting. The evaluations contain both positive information and evaluation, and also something that the speaker either might do differently or perhaps might improve upon. The remaining functionaries give their reports after the evaluations are given. We have an ah counter who notes how many verbal crutches are used by anyone speaking, a grammarian who briefly notes any poor use of the English language, a timer who gives a report on the length of each speech, each evaluation, and each table topic's response, because each of these have a specific time limit. As the meeting wraps up, the club president resumes control. We ask our guests for commentary about their experience with the meeting, and we invite our guests to return either for another visit or certainly to become a member of our club. As I noted earlier, we will be unable to cover all of the aspects of our regular meetings, but I invite you to join us for a regular meeting and see what a Toastmasters program really looks like. I also invite you, on behalf of the club, to come and join us as a member. At this time, I would like to relinquish control of the lectern to our tonight's Toastmaster, Jonathan Bohm.
Thank you, Olivette. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. I am your Toastmaster this evening, and we will start, as we always do at our meetings, with introductions. You already know who I am. I'm Jonathan Bohm. I've been a Toastmaster for 7 years. I'm currently serving as the District 45 Public Relations Manager. And the most valuable thing I have learned in Toastmasters is that I can stand up and do this. So I invite each of you to step up to the microphone and tell us just that brief bit about yourself.
Good evening. My name is Monique Buchanan. I've been a member of Toastmasters for 2 years now, and I'm also the VP of Public Relations of the Exeter Speak-Ups Club. I have really learned to be more comfortable in front of a group speaking, and I love the support that Toastmasters provides. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tom Bodensteiner. I've been a member for 6 years of the Exeter Speak-Ups. I'm the current VP of Membership, and I would say the most valuable skill I've learned is what Olivette was talking about, speaking on your feet with no preparation, which we do in table topics and speech evaluations.
Good evening once again. My name is Olivette Aviso. I'm currently the club president. I am also a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level education and leadership award that Toastmasters gives. It takes a lot of work. I am also the Division A director for this year, and I'm a member of 2 other clubs as well. What Toastmasters has given me is a great deal of contact and networking opportunities with not only people here in my club and my state of New Hampshire, but also around the world. And I encourage you to think in terms of the opportunities that you can derive from being a Toastmaster in Exeter Speak-Ups.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Raymond Mark. I've been a Toastmasters member for over 2.5 years. I am currently the Exeter Speak-Ups Club Secretary. I would say that the most valuable thing that I get from my Toastmasters experience is the exposure that I get to the work of other members and really developing a great idea of the versatility and breadth that's available when you're creating speeches.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marina Kirsch. I've been a Toastmaster for about 5.5 years. I've served as Exeter Speak-Ups Club President and also as Area 10 Director. I feel that the most important thing that Toastmasters gives me is the ability to continue to think on my feet, speak on my feet, and be able to deal with unusual circumstances that might pop up spur of the moment.
Thank you, everyone. And moving on, we will now have our joke master, who, as Olivette said, gives us a little bit of humor at the beginning of the meeting to kind of loosen us up. And I'd like to introduce our joke master this evening, Tom Bodensteiner.
A plane left New York City flying to Rome, Italy. It was Alitalia. And about an hour into the flight, the captain comes on the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little problem. We have one engine no work, but no problem. We still have 3 other engines. We still scheduled to make it to Roma on the time. Thank you for flying Alitalia. Another hour goes by, and the captain comes on once again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain again. We have another little problem. We now have 2 engines in no work, but no problem. We still have 2 more engines, and we still scheduled to make it to Roma on the time. Thank you for flying Alitalia. About an hour later, the captain comes on again. This time it's, ladies and gentlemen, we have a bigger problem now. We now have 3 engines no work, but no problem. We still have 1 more engine. We still scheduled to make it to Roma on the time. Thank you for flying Alitalia. About a half hour later, the captain comes on once again. And this time, ladies and gentlemen, we now have a big problem. We have no engines at work now, but no problem. We are going to try to fly the plane onto the water. So the people on the left side of the plane, please put on your safety jackets. And for the people on the right side of the plane, thank you for flying Alitalia.
And now our word master, Monique Buchanan.
Each meeting we present a word to help improve our vocabulary and grammar. Today's word I am presenting for the group is effervescent. It's an adjective and has 2 meanings, which are giving off bubbles, fizzy, and a second is vivacious and enthusiastic. Word usage could be in a sentence: an effervescent cocktail was offered to event attendees, or effervescent young people were the life of the party. If you use the word during your speech or at any time during the meeting, we applaud you for your use of the word. Thank you.
Now, to inspire us with an educational or an inspirational quote, I would like to introduce our quote master of the evening, Raymond Mark.
Thank you, Jonathan. Today's quote comes from Kristen Lohr, who is a certified life coach. She is also certified through the Gallup Strengths program, and she approaches life and her coaching from a perspective of positive psychology, meaning that that her clients emphasize what's strong and what's good in their work. And I think that the quote today applies not only to us as members of Toastmasters and how we might approach our development of speech making, but also to many other aspects of life. Growth is uncomfortable because you've never been here before. You've never been this version of yourself. So give yourself a little grace and breathe through it. Mr. Toastmaster.
The first half of our meetings usually includes table topics, which you've heard several people mention, but we are not actually going to do that tonight. So perhaps that's a teaser that will get you to come and join us and visit us at one of our regular Exeter Speak-Ups meetings. After this table topics, we take a break, and then we launch into the prepared speeches of the evening. This evening, we're going to skip the break and move right ahead here, and we have 2 prepared speeches. Our first speaker tonight is Marina Kirsch, who will be giving her speech from the Advanced Communication Manual Storytelling, project number 4, The Touching Story. Before I introduce Marina, I would like Olivette to come up and explain about the timing for the speeches.
As mentioned before, our speakers have a specific time limit in which to deliver their speeches. We have 2 speakers this evening. Marina has requested a 7 to 9 minute speech. I will be holding up cards with colors, green when she reaches 7 minutes, yellow when she reaches 8 minutes, and red when she reaches 9 minutes. We have a second speaker, Raymond Mark. He has asked for 5 to 7 minutes. In Raymond's case, I will hold up the green card for 5 minutes, the yellow card for 6 minutes, and he will get the red card at 7 minutes. I will give a report when asked. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Our first speaker tonight is Marina Kirsch, who joined Exeter Speak-Ups in 2012. She has earned the Advanced Leader Silver Award, is working toward Advanced Communicator Silver, and has served as club president and Toastmasters Area 10 director. She is also a graphic designer, an award-winning author, and a New Hampshire humanities speaker for her family's World War II story at libraries, museums, lifelong learning institutes, and other venues. This evening, Marina will share a story entitled That Day in July, about gaining a new perspective on a pervasive and distressing social issue. Marina.
A single encounter can forever change our view of people who face harsh challenges in their lives. That day in July, I was driving in Bedford, New Hampshire, when up ahead I saw a man with a walker nearly falling into oncoming traffic. My immediate thought, I have to respond. Do unto others. I stopped the car, lowered the window, and asked, "Do you need help?" "Yes, I do. I could use a ride." Now, a dilemma. I don't give rides to strangers, not since 1981, when I gave a lift to 2 backpackers in northern New Hampshire. But that was then, and they were backpackers, and my first husband was with me. A tough Bostonian with a long history of fistfights and self-defense. I stall by asking, "Where do you need to go?" "Merrimack?" He's 60-something, thin, with a well-groomed face and sincere blue eyes. The traffic continues flowing by uninterrupted as I deliberate what to do. But dilemmas resolved easily that day. "Okay, hop in." I walk around, I put his walker in the back. And then, where to? Walmart on Com Ave? As I drive, we exchange names and pleasantries, but I have changed his name in order to protect his identity. What brings you to Bedford today, Stuart? There's a store down the street that I go to, but then I have to get to Merrimack. Is that where you live? No, I used to. I live in Manchester now. But how will you get back home then? I'll get another ride. He talks during the drive, politely, eloquently, about a lot of things, peeling back the layers of his life, mainly talking about his 4 children, all grown except for his 16-year-old son, who used to live with him, but now lives with a girlfriend and her mother. That's what I know about Stuart. He's likable, he's articulate, and he works in Merrimack. I used to have an apartment in Manchester, but then the landlord changed the location of the mailbox without notifying anyone, and my Social Security disability checks were cut off. I couldn't pay the rent, I lost the apartment, and now I can't begin receiving checks again until I have an address. But so far, I don't have enough for security deposit and first and last. Where do you live now, Stuart? In a friend's driveway, in my car that no longer runs. Whoa. He's homeless, I think to myself, and I see myself standing on the edge of the abyss right next to him and looking down. Utter desolation washes over me like I have seldom felt in my life. And then he continues. My friend lets me sleep in his driveway for $20 a week, and a few times a week he lets me into the house so I can clean up and shave. But he's on the brink too, and if he can't pay his rent, I won't have any place to sleep anymore. And this is why I go to Bedford. I go to Bedford to get new clothes because I have no way to do laundry. Stuart, what about a homeless shelter? Tried it. Too risky. Someone tried to steal my walker while I was sleeping, and without it, I can't get around, and I can't even stand for very long. By the time we arrive at Walmart in Merrimack, Stuart has covered his growing up years in Merrimack, the day that his wife walked out on him and left him with 4 children to raise, his work as a furniture mover to support the family until he was injured on the job, and then a desk job until they laid him off. He hasn't been able to find work since. His monologue is entirely devoid of self-pity, however. And now, sitting there in the car in the parking lot of the Walmart, I look around and I say, hopelessly naively, but you work around here now, right? Well, not exactly. I head over there to the police substation, and then they let me stand over there. Comprehension dawned slowly that day. I didn't get what he meant until he said, "They let me stand over there with a sign, and sometimes people give me money, but most of the time people either ignore me or they yell obscenities." By this time, I could hardly feel less effervescent. Stuart's story left me completely amazed. He continues I don't have enough for security deposit and first and last. And then I hear a voice, and the voice says, how much more do you need, Stuart? $200, and I could have an apartment tomorrow. And then the checks will start coming in again, and we'll be fine. I'll have enough money for an apartment for my son and me. Vacillation was a luxury that was not indulged that day in July. Inside the store, I withdraw enough money from my personal account to pay for his deposit and another couple hundred for him and his son. When I hand him the envelope, attached to it is my contact info and a business card from my church in case he needs help. Then, I'm a Toastmaster after all. I did the logical next thing. I invited him to the local coffee shop for lunch because I want to hear more about his remarkable story. He accepts only Coke and a donut. By the time we part ways, I have gained a master's degree in homelessness studies from a man who seemingly did everything right, but still ended up destitute. I've told very few people this story. Now a lot of you are hearing it. Of the few people I told, 2 people said, with a big smile, Marina, you have been had big time. The others tend to think that Stuart's story is legitimate. What do you think? As for me, after briefly considering that I might have been had, no, I completely believe his story. My perspective on homelessness changed forever that day in July. It gained a face, a name, and a narrative. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Marina. Our second speaker tonight is Raymond Mark, and I would like to introduce his evaluator, Monique Buchanan.
Raymond will be giving a speech on bringing history to life. The objectives of his speech are to understand the purpose of stories about historical events or people, to use the storytelling skills developed in the preceding projects to tell a story about a historical event or person. And he has 7 to 9 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes.
Our next speaker has been a member of Exeter Speak-Ups since 2016. In addition to honing his craft as a speaker, he has also served as Vice President Public Relations, Vice President Education, and Club Secretary. He has competed at the club, area, and division levels, as well as serving as Toastmaster and contest chair for multiple events. When not working on his speechcraft, Raymond is likely to be found working on his musicianship with his keyboards, guitar, or piano, or satisfying the wanderlust that has brought him to live in Sydney, Australia, and Windsor, England, and to visit the Amazon jungle, the Galapagos Islands, and Antarctica. Tonight, he presents a speech that's part biography and part shared history for us as Toastmasters. Please welcome Raymond Mark presenting his speech, Mission Statement. Raymond.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Who here has heard the name Ralph C. Smedley? Excellent, and hopefully you at home have heard that as well because our president, Olivette Aviso, mentioned his name earlier. Dr. Smedley's claim to fame is being the founder of Toastmasters International. But even to Toastmasters, there's not much known about him. There is sadly a dearth of information about his history and his story. The entirety of his Wikipedia entry is all about his founding and shepherding of the Toastmasters International organization. But, for example, there is no mention of the fact that he was highly influenced by his local Rotary Club, or any mention of his wife and daughter, or the fact that his alma mater bestowed upon him an honorary degree as a Doctorate of Humane Letters in recognition of his service to mankind. Indeed, while there's a wide body of information that discusses what he did in the context of Toastmasters, there's considerably less information about who he was. However, I think it's possible to intuit his perspectives and his personality and his passions by examining the choices he made in shaping the Toastmasters organization. And unsurprisingly, we'll see that his philosophies of communication, leadership, and fellowship persist in the Toastmaster organization today, more than a century after the original meeting. Now, even though we don't have video of him as a youth or as a young man starting out Toastmasters, by all accounts, he probably was not the most effervescent personality. He was known to be soft-spoken, although not demure, and his watchword was caring and education and sharing. After graduating from Illinois Wesleyan University in 1903, Dr. Smedley found himself working for the Bloomington, Illinois YMCA. And at that time, there was a particularly interesting confluence of events that was happening. Not only was he working for the YMCA, which at this point had a 50-year history in the United States, but also the whole education of rhetoric in schools had pretty much died away because of advances in photography and reporting. And he also found that the concept of adult education, which we may take for granted these days, was new at that time. Education was for children, and to learn something when you were older was new. And so these events were really fertile ground for him to think of an organization that might assist people in developing their speech skills. Now, at the forefront of the Toastmasters experience, there was a call for members to have better speech. Understanding good speech and developing rhetoric skills were labors of love for Dr. Smedley. Of the many articles that he wrote for the Toastmasters magazine, over a third of them focused on language, style, and semantics. And this is not surprising because he felt that speech wasn't about words per se. He wrote, "Words are poetry. Words are music. Words are pictures. Words are concentrated, crystallized history. But fundamentally, words are grunts." To him, lovely words and full vocabularies were nice, but it was the conveyance of ideas and the sharing that was crucial. He eschewed flowery words for clarity, and he recommended that people become aware of their own speech and recognize their favorite words that they use repeatedly and try to develop a vocabulary that let them expand on how they might speak. One of the exercises that he proposed was to read the sports section in the newspaper and find out the different ways that writers would be able to communicate that the batter hit the ball. Why were different words used? What was the writer trying to express? Dr. Smedley, I'd like to note, also had a vested interest in humor. And to me, this is crucial because humor and connection is one of the ways that we use our language. Now, Dr. Smedley did hold high the art of rhetoric, but this led to an important misunderstanding of Toastmasters International. Many people have the idea that the sole objective of joining a Toastmasters club is to improve their speech making. But Dr. Smedley himself noted that if it were possible to take a poll of our members, it is safe to assume that 4 out of 5 of them would say that they have come to Toastmasters for speech improvement. But curiously, speech improvement has never been the primary objective of a Toastmasters training program. Dr. Smedley always viewed the endgame of Toastmasters as developing strong leaders, and that the speechcraft was but one aspect of that. He wrote that speech is a means, not an end. How is this accomplished? In Dr. Smedley's view, the program is not to improve speech making, but to improve communication. And Dr. Smedley viewed improved communication as a critical element of good leadership. More specifically, he stated that self-expression is one of the first steps toward leadership. And when one learned to express him or herself well, it would reveal hidden strengths, not only to the speaker, but to those around the speaker. And this philosophy is contained in our organization's tagline, Toastmasters International, where leaders are made. Now, club meetings were the vehicle for this leadership development. But how would these meetings be conducted so as to transform the inarticulate and the glossophobes into savvy presenters? Again, he found guidance in his day job at the YMCA. The YMCA mission includes a statement of core values to demonstrate a sincere concern for others, for their needs and well-being. Dr. Smedley's own experience was that making speeches went hand in hand with being judged and was typically experienced as, oh, me against the world as I stand here at that lectern. So he deliberately crafted the Toastmasters experience to be one driven by commonality and sharing. And he said that the usefulness of speeches that were bombastic or overly ornate didn't have a place in Toastmasters. And he created a philosophy that he called amplified conversation, specifically to talk to an audience of many as people as you would talk to one person. The idea of speeches as conversation made speech-making less threatening. And this philosophy also extended to the critiques that were to remain a part of the Toastmasters experience. Evaluations were no longer judgments and criticisms. They instead became suggestions and shared ideas. In a letter that Dr. Smedley wrote on his 80th birthday, he declared, "If we should ever lose this sense of fellowship, of personal, friendly relationships, we might easily become just another high-grade correspondence school. The personal touch in all levels of our work is one of its distinguishing features. We are working together." Consider the mission for Toastmasters clubs. We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. More than 100 years after Dr. Ralph Smedley founded the first Toastmasters Club in Bloomington, Illinois, his philosophies of communication, leadership, and fellowship remain. And we practice those philosophies in our education program. We declare them in our mission statement. And most importantly, we embrace them in our club meetings and share them with our fellow members. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Raymond. At this point in the meeting, we move to the evaluations of the speeches that we've just heard. And tonight, I will start as the evaluator for Marina's speech that day in July. Fellow Toastmasters, and most importantly, Marina, thank you very much for delivering a speech that had the objective to arouse emotions within us. You very obviously succeeded at that, and you used several techniques to bring up those emotions. And I think we probably all had a certain range of emotions in there. For myself, I had sympathy and compassion, and at the end, anger. Some of the ways you did this, quoting from some of the things you did, because you have excellent vocabulary that helped evoke those emotions. A man with a walker nearly falling into the traffic. Disabilities checks cut off. Wife walking out, leaving him with 4 children. Sincere blue eyes. Doesn't that paint just a nice picture of a very unfortunate man? Lost his apartment, standing on the edge of the abyss. Utter devastation. And then the killer one, someone who did things right but ended up destitute. Doesn't that just grab? It grabbed me. You use dialogue as a main vehicle here, and I particularly was impressed that you didn't try to use any sort of dialect, mimicry, any sort of thing like that, which I think could have brought some sort of schmaltz or pathos to it, that by using your voice and just changing your face and direction, we knew who was talking. That was excellent. You had a lot of dialogue in, which of course is a very good way of telling us rather than just showing us. And dialogue really brings it home, makes it very believable and real. You had a very clear structure here. There was a plot. You had the perfect elements of the plot with the setup, and then we have the character development, Stuart's story, your reactions. There's the momentum as the story builds, and then we have that vital part of anything, which is the conflict. And the conflict didn't seem to be in you of what you should do. You seemed to know what you wanted to do and felt that was the right thing. But at the end, when you told other people and they said, Marina, you've been had, that seemed to be the point when perhaps you entertained a little self-doubt. But you were firm in your conviction in the end. So that was a resolved conflict. Beautifully done. Were there places that you could improve? There's always room for improvement. And it's hard to suggest improvements to somebody who's an accomplished speaker. But I would say that you ended beautifully, so you need to start a little more beautifully. You did jump right in, but then we were kind of over here with a bit of distraction about your relationships with hitchhikers in the past. I felt that could have been edited out and jumped right into that day in July in Bedford, right here, right now. You use pauses very well, but I think you need to use them a little bit more. And specifically when you had Stuart speaking and then you had a thought, an internal reaction to it. Somewhere in there, you could give a little bit more pause. You did it sometime, but perhaps not consistently. And I think that would help the audience digest the difference between Stuart and you, Marina. Beautiful job, Marina. You touched us, and that was the objective of your speech. Congratulations, and as always, I look forward to hearing your next speech, and soon, I hope. Our second evaluator tonight is Monique Buchanan, evaluating Raymond's speech.
Thank you. Raymond is an experienced speaker, and he has a theater background, so he has wonderful vocal variety, which we experienced this evening using good volume changes and pauses throughout his speech. I would like to talk mostly about the speech itself. We noticed, how you present, and I think that you do an exceptional job there. But the speech started out, so the first question is, was the plot clear of this story? And he does state right up front that he is wanting to provide a bigger picture or a clearer picture of who this Dr. Smedley was. And he does that very well through telling us about more of his background and the vision that he had for Toastmasters. He promises that we will learn more about the man himself, and I definitely learned a lot about Dr. Smedley. To what degree did he succeed with building a climax? Well, I felt that there was a point where you asked an important question, and it was a decisive question early on. How does Dr. Smedley's vision of Toastmasters distinguish Toastmasters from another kind of adult educational club or speaking club? And you emphasize that he really was looking at leadership and communication and offering a supportive environment. And so that, I think, answered that question. How he distinguishes Toastmasters from other types of organization like this. He also had very strong core values, which you underlined with his background and his work in education. So we get a really good sense of how he was thinking about Toastmasters and why he developed it in the way that he did. You give a lot of biographical information right up front, so we get to know a lot of information, but then we don't really get to know the personality of this man until later. And you provide several quotes of what things that he said that help us to establish his passion, his vision, and his philosophy behind Toastmasters. You describe it very effectively using examples of why he was a qualified person to develop a club such as Toastmasters based on his educational background and the work that he was doing already. I thought especially that some of the quotes really provided that passion behind his vision. And that is really all I have to say. I think as far as improvement, I know that this was quickly prepared, so perhaps next time use less notes so that you can be a little bit more free and maybe not have to stand behind the podium. But I think it was excellently done. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Now it's time to have a report from our counter, Tom Bodensteiner. Tom has counted and reviewed the ahs, ums, and other nasty little filler words that we all use in our speech. And so he will now tell us how bad or how good we did.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well, you all did fantastic. I really listened very intently to everyone. And I can tell you, I only picked up a couple. I'll go down the list. So as Jonathan said, I'm looking for the filler words like ahs, ums, so's, likes, Marina, you spoke for 9 minutes, and I picked up one which I think was a forced right?
Part of the dialogue.
You were interviewing Stuart. Other than that, I didn't hear one filler word from you, which was amazing. Raymond, the same thing with you. I heard nothing in your 7+ speech. And even when there were a few times you were collecting your thoughts, that's when we have a tendency to say those ahs and ums. I know I do. There was nothing, so great job. Monique and Jonathan, I heard a couple of ums, but I think that it's typical when you're giving a speech evaluation because it's really an impromptu talk. You don't have much time to prepare. And Olivette, I've heard Zippo from you so far, so keep up the good work. I'm done.
Thanks, Tom. Now, to catch us on our little grammar errors, I would like to introduce Marina Kirsch, who has served as grammarian tonight. Marina.
Thank you, Jonathan, but everyone is far too intelligent and erudite in this group. I have nothing, zippo, to report as a grammarian, I'm happy to say.
Should it always be that easy, Marina? Thank you. As mentioned earlier, we do have a timer, and she has kept diligent track of everything that has been measured tonight in seconds and minutes. I would like to introduce Olivette.
Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome visitors. We had 2 wonderful speeches and 2 wonderful evaluations. Marina Kirsch had asked for 7 to 9 minutes. Marina waxed a tad loquacious this evening. 9 minutes and 58 seconds. Very good, just under the wire. Oh my. Raymond Mark had asked for 5 to 7 minutes, but warned me that he might go a little over. 8 minutes and 59 seconds later, a tad. Jonathan, evaluating Marina's speech. Evaluators are given from 2 to 3 minutes to do their evaluations. Jonathan started before I realized he was evaluating, and so I missed some of his evaluation, but he had a minimum of 3 minutes and 31 seconds. We're all a little talkative this evening. Monique, you were the most wonderful star of the evening. Your evaluation, due 2 to 3 minutes, was 2 minutes and 58 seconds. What a wonderful group we have here, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Fellow Toastmasters, that concludes our meeting. And I would like to invite everyone watching this to come visit us, check it out on our website, and come visit us the first and third Wednesdays of every month here at Riverwoods in Exeter, and learn what Toastmasters can do for you and what you can give to Toastmasters to help build yourself and realize your dreams and become the absolute best that you ever can possibly hope to be and more. Thank you and good night.